Okay, Year 5, you are very lucky today. We're going to be making our Tudor Roses. So you're going to have 4 colours, your red, white, green and yellow. Notice that red is the most amount of icing you will use and yellow is the least. Okay, so we're going to start with the base of our Tudor Rose, which is red. Okay, so all you're going to want to do is roll your red into a beautiful, round, perfect ball shape and use your thumb to press out evenly and your finger a nice flat disc. Now you don't want it to be too thick because otherwise the leaves, the petals will look clumpy, but you also do not want it to be too thin either. And I'm very carefully using my finger very gently now to smooth out around the edges. So I use my thumb to press down and try and move out and spread out the icing, and now I'm just going to use my finger to gently smooth over the top so it's a nice flat surface, and that is a really satisfying thing to do. Obviously don't overdo this because it will get a bit sticky, okay, but I'm just going to lift it up for you in a second to show you the thickness that you are looking for. Just a couple of millimeters in thickness, not too thick at all, really. Even, I say, yeah, just a couple of millimeters. Then what you're going to do, now I used a skewer for this, but obviously you guys will use toothpicks. You're going to mark out your petals, and there are 5 petals altogether. So you start by making 2 indentations at the top. Now I put pressure on the tip of my skewer, so you put pressure on the tip of your toothpick and I just gently pressed in, and then I dragged the icing in to give that indentation, and you kind of go halfway in. You don't want to go all the way across, otherwise you'll cut up your petal, your flower, and it will all fall apart. Okay, so you're just making an indentation, and the same on the other side. You'll do 2 more, so it's almost like a cross. And then you'd have 1 down the centre, so you've got 5 petals. Now you'll have an image, so you have an image to refer to as well. So you've got 2 opposite each other, top at bottom, and 1 down the centre. Okay, and then dragging that tip of the toothpick, or in my case the skewer, to create a line that separates the petals. Okay, so you don't want your petals to be joining, they must be separated. Make sure you don't lose too much of the shape, and take your time to carefully prise apart the petals using the tip of your toothpick. And that is it roughly for the base of the Tudor Rose. And let's see what's next. Can any of you guess what's going to come up next? What part's going to be next? You guessed it correctly. It's the white part. Now can you see I've got way too much icing there? Okay, because if I was to press that down to make the white petals inside the Tudor Rose, it would spill over the red and look wrong. So I'm going to take about half of that off, which you guys are more than welcome to do. If you've got too much icing, okay, please take it off and use what you think is correct. Now that looks like a beautiful pearl sitting inside, which is just the right amount. Okay, so I use my little finger and then my middle finger to spread it out and tap it down carefully so it's nice and even and not uneven around the edges, and nice and flat. Okay, and now you're going to do exactly the same thing as you did with the petals, but you're not following the same line as where the petals are. Okay, this time you're making a line which is in between the red petal. Okay, so you'd think, oh, I'm just copying the lines I've already got. No, you're creating 5 lines in between each petal, okay, in the red petals. So can you see? And I'll show you hopefully in a second. So you're creating a mini red essentially in the centre using the white, but this time the lines are in between those red petals, okay, the centre of those red petals. So there should be 5 lines all together, and you're doing the same thing. You're using your toothpick to create a nice indentation. Try not to drag too much in case you get red icing there. And can you see the 5 indentations in the middle of each red petal? Okay, so you're close to being finished now. Now you need to make your leaves. So you need a tiny piece of fondant icing, and you need to pinch it between your fingers, and then you need to pinch the base to create a nice flat base. So you've got a pointy leaf, okay, and then a flat base to sit underneath your rose. Now this bit is where it can all go a bit ski-whiff, okay? I don't even think that's a word, whatever it means. But as you're going around your rose, you don't want to ruin the shape that you've created already. So really gently lift up your rose, okay, and try and work, I'd say, fairly quickly. Don't be too slow on this bit because your fondant icing is soft and it's not hard yet, so the shape can change quite easily. You can always change that when it's back down, you know, on your work surface, but it's best not to handle it too much. And then I went back in with my skewer just to make the lines a little bit deeper and to kind of join the red and the green together. So the green was dragging down in between that gap we have between those petals. Okay, so you're filling the gap in between those red petals that you've made with your lovely green leaves. Nice and simple. And then once you've made your lovely triangular shaped green leaves that are sitting in between your red petals, like I said, use your skewer to go through it and make sure that they're connected nicely and that the green leaves running all the way through. We've got the last bit, which we're using the yellow to make the center. And again, you need a tiny, even smaller than your white now. Gosh, I'm trying to think, what's that the size of? Maybe a peppercorn? Possibly, might be a little bit bigger than that. Okay, I used my skewer again, I couldn't help myself, to go back in and just tidy a few edges before I press down my yellow. But I gently pressed down my yellow to make sure that it was connected to my white, okay? Otherwise, if you don't press the fondant together, you can use water to attach it, but we're not going to in this case because it can get quite sticky. You can simply just gently press it down, which is what I did just then. And the next bit you can do, which you can't quite see, I'm going to take a picture and put it in on the examples. You can get the end of your skewer and you can make a lovely line that copies the shape of the leaf inside, I keep saying leaf, inside the red petal, okay? And that creates a nice fine bit of detail, and hopefully you can see that in the camera, me using my skewer to make a nice line in the red petals, create a little bit of detail. Now, things you don't want to do with your fondant. Play around with it too much in your hands, it will dry out and it will get annoying, and then you'll have dry, cracked fondant. Trust me, I've been there. It gets a bit stretchy and sticky, you don't need to do that. Something else we don't want to see, okay, is your fondant on, you guessed it, let's see if you can work it out, on your tables, squished and squashed in. Nuh-uh. And you guys will be tidying that if you're not careful. So make sure you haven't got fondant squashed on your tables. Make sure you're using your sandwich bag. Oh, and definitely don't eat it. Have fun, Year 5. I'm sure these are going to be amazing. Bye.